Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Jimmy, back at you with another episode of Combat and Cryptids. I hope you guys are doing very well on this St. Patty's Day. You know, we got all the green going on back here. I think this is green. I guess, so let me be upfront with everybody. So I am completely colorblind to like green and stuff, red and green specifically. So it's just very hard to see those colors. So I think the shirt's got green on it, and I obviously know the plants are green because that's what you've been taught all your life. So, but yeah, it is St. Patty's Day. I just got off of work probably about an hour ago. So, um, yeah, just got home. I think we're gonna go to a winery. And I'm not a big wine drinker, I guess you could say. Like, and I guess not really like I don't know shit about wine. All I know is some of them taste really nasty and dry, and then some of them taste really sweet. So, and this winery is like right down the road. It's like a local place here, but they have like live music and stuff like that. They got food and other things. So I think we're gonna end up. That's what we're gonna end up doing here in a little bit, probably in a few hours. So I figured I'd get the podcast out of the way, and we would go ahead and talk about this week's subject, which is going to be. So I hope you guys liked the last week's subject. So that was kind of, I don't know, that's about me. That has nothing to do with like anything supernatural or anything crazy like that. That's me. Like that's the past from when I turned 18 to when I was about 24. Like that was what I did on a daily basis and those kinds of things. And so I hope you guys like that. I hope to maybe do more of those, kind of sprinkle those in here and there. But what today's subject is going to be about is the 10 disturbing Dogman sightings of the American Midwest. And when I mean Midwest, I think the farthest it goes over is like Wisconsin area, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Illinois, like that, that kind of Midwest. I don't know why it is, but when I start goddamn recording, I always start to like get raspy in like my throat, and I don't know why. I don't fucking cough all day. Like it's not like I smoke, but I don't, like any sorts, whether it be weed or cigarettes. Like I don't do any of that stuff. So I don't know why. Maybe it's because I continually talk, and that's probably what does it. But anyways, so American Midwest. So I'm assuming like American Midwest means because this, it goes over the region and stuff like that, and the time. But basically, the first recorded, I guess, Dogman or werewolf or whatever you want to call it, whatever the basis you want to call it, was in 1936, and basically I have 10 different stories around the same kind of area, and not the same area, but the Midwest, and the Midwest overall is not really. I mean, it's just woods and crops and fields and stuff. Like it's a lot of untouched. I mean, most of it's untouched, probably because it's like forest preserve and stuff like that. But that's what this week's subject is going to be about. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys are doing well out there in life. I guess everybody's doing as good as they can. And sometimes life fucking sucks, but, we gotta kind of deal with that shit. So, anyways, and most of the stuff, so the person who wrote this whole, like, again, like, this is just me researching this stuff, and the person who wrote this it's by Aaron Fox. And then it says it's fact checked by Darcy Heikkinen. I don't know what fact check for it is. Maybe it's just the time and places to these events that someone say that they happen. I would assume that's what it means. But they're the ones who wrote the story, and they don't go in depth with each of one of the stories. But 10 stories is pretty good. So I will basically. So my experience with this whole, what you would think. I mean, and there's two that corroborate it. And I don't know if you guys seen the other previous episodes where I talked about this, but the first one was when. So I'm from Okeechobee, Florida, and that's where my family is. That's where my dad lives. My dad still lives in the same area where all of this stuff happened. And I'll just start out with this one because I think when I talked about it, it was later in the episode. And if you don't find something that intrigues you or is that creepy as fuck, people tend to not sit around and talk about it. So I talked about this in one of my previous episodes, and I'll just touch on them just a little bit. I won't go in depth, but just to kind of set it up, like this is my experience with the whole situation. So basically, I just got out of boot camp for the Marine Corps, and I went back to Florida, And when you get back from boot camp, you think you're all high and mighty, and you want to, you obviously want to do some physical training. You just want to keep in shape and stuff because you're about to go through like MCT and then schooling, and it's all just like physical in your body. So you want to make sure you stay in shape. And I'm only 18 at the time, I think. So it's not like I'm like fat or overweight because I'm still like I'm 33 right now, and I don't look anywhere near that like fat or anything like that. And I'm not saying I'm not. There's nothing against fat people or anything like that, but I'm just, anyways, like my younger brother, he's really fat, so it's okay if I talk about fat people because he's fat. So, but anyways, so basically from there I wanted, and it's the same house where my parents live, or where my dad lives. Um, it's the same house where all this stuff happened. So basically it's a prairie, and the prairie is basically just a bunch of wide open area, and it's got woods, it's got pastures, it's got four-wheeler trails. It's just acres upon acres of just open land, and then right next to that it butts up to like a forest preserve, and then on the other sides of that you just have people who have owned like these cattle ranches and stuff for years and years of their lives. It's just generations of these families who have owned these areas, and you'll never get anybody to talk about it. I mean, just because, I mean, my dad's day and age, like no one ever really talked about that stuff because there was that view that everyone had. Everybody was always worried about like what people would think of them, like, or the way that they would think, like, oh man, this motherfucker's crazy, or this dude didn't really see this shit, or people always worried about that, so nobody ever talked about it. And but my dad did. My dad would always try to, and most times when you were younger and stuff, you'd be like, man, this dude's crazy. Like my dad, I don't know what's going on in his life, but there's something going on. But I went out there, and that's where I was staying for when I was on my boot camp leave. And I took this dog, and I wanted to take the dog, and I wanted to go for a run. And basically, when I went on a run, when you get, I probably got like 2 miles away from the house with this dog. We're just on a rope. I think I had shorts on and just shoes, and I was just running, just going, 3 or 4 miles, just go and turn around. And I think I got about 2 miles away from the house. And once you get 2 miles away, there's no cell phone service. Like at the time, you're thinking 2008, 2009. Cell phone service this time is not really that great, especially on the prairie. You're 45 minutes from town, and it's just not the great kind of service. So I'm running with this dog, and I forget the dog's name. I think his name was, what the hell's name did I call him? I think it was like Gunner or Mason or something. It's one of those just regular like dog names. But I took him running. It was a good dog. He was just a red nosed pit, I think. And we go for a run. We get to this point about 2 miles away, and you just hear the silence like in the woods, and it's just an eerie silence, like not that kind of silence where you're like, this is peaceful, like the kind of silence that just makes you feel on edge. Hairs on the back of your neck, things like that happen. It always gives you that heightened sense of like, hey, like I don't know what's going on, but this is just odd for this kind of an area, and it's all wooded and stuff like that, and it's thick woods around it. It's like, you got briars, you got palmettos, you have oak trees, you got pine trees, you got all kinds of stuff, and you can't just run through these woods. So I'm just following the four-wheeler trails because they're all just sandy, or just like shell road and stuff like that. So we're running down this road, and we get to a point where we start to walk for something because obviously the dog's tired, I'm getting tired, and we start to walk, and you just get that feeling like something's watching you, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? And then at that point, we stop for like a second. I look down at the dog, and he just has this weird ass look on his face for whatever he's looking at or whatever's going on. I don't know, but who the fuck is that? So there's two windows here. People walk by. It's just not. If you don't have a dog, it's just kind of weird if you're just walking by yourself. But anyways, so I look down at the dog, and he's just like, just looking straight ahead, and he's just like have a look of like concern, like ears are up. He's looking at something, and the minute I look up, you see the biggest, and when I mean biggest, I think it's 3 times the size of this dog, and this dog's probably like 50, 55 pounds. He's a big pit bull, and you look probably about 25, 30 feet in front of me, just dead in its tracks, is what looks to be like the biggest wolf I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, like Balto style wolf. And wolves are not prevalent in Florida. Like they're non-existent. I mean, probably like 50 years ago, maybe. But they're just not there. So you see coyotes and stuff like that, just like smaller animals like that, but you don't see things like that. So that was completely, you think you have like Florida panthers, you have hogs, you got deer, and when I say this, people think I'm fucking crazy. So in Likes Brothers, Moorhaven, Florida, there was an orange grove place, and they had fucking elk. I'm shit you not. Like, I'm not lying. This ain't no fucking joke. You can ask any one of my family members, my brothers, my dad, whatever. There was this family of elk that were there too as well. So that was, it wasn't unheard of to see weird things, but this is something you did not think you would see. So I see this thing, and it's just dead still, and it's the blackest, the darkest thing you would ever see, like pitch black, black like this black, with a little bit of gray, but that black. It was the darkest thing you would ever see, and the thing did not make a sound. It wasn't like me and him are like heavy breathing, like you can hear our breathing. This thing was not making a sound. And I don't know if this is like me making this up in my head, but the weird thing about it is the dog saw it too. And dogs are already fucking weirded out by things. Like we have a dog right now that when we're dead ass asleep, this dude will start growling at shit in the corner, and it freaks us out. So dogs are already, they have like a heightened sense. They can smell, they can hear very well. So those kinds of things. But the dog saw it, and that's what probably freaked me out the most. And I'm probably staring at this thing for probably like 5 or 6 seconds, like at most. And then I look back down at the dog because I don't want this dog to try and go, because these dogs, they were bred for, they're just hunting dogs. They hunt hogs, and that's it. That's all that they do. So they're always trying to look for something to fucking kill. So as soon as I look back down at the dog, and I'm like, hey, like, don't be fucking stupid, because I will leave your ass here. I I look back up, and I shit you not, as fast as I saw the thing, as fast as the thing fucking disappeared. And this is broad daylight. This isn't like evening time, dusk. It ain't the sun going down. It ain't early in the morning. This is midday in Florida. It's hot, and this thing is gone just as quick and the way it was directed, it directed like it was going left. So as we're going through the trail, it directs like it's going left. So to see it do a 180 and go back the other way, this didn't make sense. So obviously we knew that it went left. But then probably like 10 seconds later, you could hear something further away on the right that sounded like, I don't know what the fuck it was. I would hope that it was that, because then at least I know what it is. But the thing is, I don't think the thing redirected and went back the other way. I think it was running from something. What it could be, I don't fucking know. Maybe it was another one of them. And there was something to corroborate the story, which I thought was, there was no, like, so I said this story, and then probably I was 18 at the time, so I'm 33 now, 32, whatever. That time frame, whatever that math is, I mean, if you're good at math, you do the math. But it's a pretty long time. So I told my brother, my little brother, my dad about this, and then they told me about this story about the same kind of area on the prairie. It's a 5 mile stretch. In that same area, my dad saw these big fucking wolf-like creatures that were playing with each other. Two of them playing, and he caught them in the rear view. Well, my mom caught them in the rear view, and they were looking back through the rear view, and they saw them. They stopped. My dad got out, pulled his scope, and looked at these things, and he was like, and as soon as he put his scope on them, they saw him, and they ran off. And then him and my little brother went back out there. They dropped my mom off, obviously for safety reasons. I'd rather want them get killed than my mom. But they dropped her off. They went back out there, and it's like foggy, like like Florida, like the way the heat and humidity and the rain, like all that. If the right combination happens, that fucking fog can get thick. And they go to the corner of the pasture where the cows and everything are, to where there is a road that follows that whole path and then goes into the prairie, and then on the other side is, so everything butts up to something. So they see that, and they're like, they see the tracks on the ground. They look like fucking dog tracks. They look exactly like dog tracks. And they're like, they went in here. So they go and cross into this place, and not even 30 seconds later, all these fucking cows start running towards them. And if you know something about cows, is cows are fucking dumb. And if the cows are dumb enough to run away from something, then chances are you probably don't want to be there either. So they got the fuck out of there. But that happened as well 10, 15 years after I'd even had the encounter. So it was just like weird how we had never talked about it, but had something similar. So That was kind of my experience with the whole wolf, werewolf, dogman, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like that shit was creepy as fuck, and that shit stayed with me for so long, and I never told anybody about it. Never talked about it. I told the first time I brought it up was when I started the first, or I don't know, it's the first or the third episode of this podcast. Was the first time I had said anything about it, like publicly. Like my brothers, my family, nobody ever knew about this because it was just shit I didn't want to bring up and didn't want to talk about. But on that note, that was my experience for that. So yeah, so now we'll just jump right into these. So basically, sorry. So Aaron Fox wrote this. Running, pulling. That's work. All right. So I have to call them back after we're done with this. That's about. But anyways, I'll deal with that. Like work is gonna be work regardless. I gotta go to Cincy next week, so whatever. I can fucking talk to them guys whenever. Either way, the problems are still gonna be there, so I ain't fucking worried about them. At least not right now. So, all right. So the werewolf is one of the most iconic monsters of history, both fictional and historical. From the legend of King Lycan to the leading wolfman, there's all kinds of. I mean, there's so many werewolf movies out there, and the thing about werewolf movies, like I think the best kind of depiction, in my opinion, is like the underworld style ones, because the way the transformation happened, all that kind of stuff, like that's cool as fuck. So, a fantasy enthusiast imagine one would be hard pressed to call a werewolf a cryptid, though, and that it where our new friend the Dogman steps in, also referred to as the Michigan Dogman, which is really weird how all of these encounters and stuff, a lot of them started up here in the Midwest, which I never knew that. The Michigan Dogman, the Beast of Bray Road, or simple as the Upright Canid. These de facto modern werewolves would have been spotted from the start of the 20th century through to even this day. Most of the sightings, though, have taken place in the U.S. states of Michigan and Wisconsin. Here's a list of the 10 modern werewolf sightings in the area around Lake Michigan, listed in order from earliest to latest. However, this list hardly scratches the flea-bitten surface of these mysterious canine encounters. Yeah, so this is top 10. There's, I mean, you can say, like, you can search for it, but if you search for Dogman encounters, there's only one page of stuff. So there might be a lot of them, but there's just different places you got to go look for them. All right. So number 10. So 1936 in Racine, Wisconsin, on Monster Quest: Legend of the American Werewolf. One of the first Dogman sightings took place around the Great Lakes, in the Wisconsin city of Racine, right on the western coast of Lake Michigan and very near the border of Illinois. A man by the name of Mark Shackleman was working as a night watchman. I would never do that. I could never do that. Like, there's no way in hell that I'm ever. Like, I've seen so. And I don't know if you guys. I mean, if you do the research and you look for stuff, you can find stuff. But if, like, people who are on night watch, like patrol night watches, where you have to, like, walk around and, like do that kind of shit, like, that shit's gotta be creepy. Um, so this is already, like, some of these people, I'm like, man, you guys got some balls of steel. So one night during his round, Shackleman saw a canine-looking, black-furred and carrion-smelling creature with what he described as long claws. The dogman was kneeling and scratching at an indigenous people's burial ground near the Covent, but he fled as soon as Shackleman approached to investigate. He returned the next day only to find footprints and claw marks, although apparently two of the fingers seemed to be withered from what the night watchman could tell for the markings. Shackleman, scheduled to work the 2 nights in a row, went back the next night, and once again he witnessed the creature scratching at the mound. However, this time the animal did not run away. It stood up 6 feet tall and made eye contact with Shackleman, and then it spoke. It was only one word, though, less of an actual word and more of a gatera. The night watchman summoned up his courage and refused to run away. He simply maintained eye contact before praying to God, turning around and walking away slowly. The dogman sneered at Mark, still staring menacingly, but didn't move. Mark Shackleman never saw the creature again, though he did often smell the dead meat scent. I don't know if I could work there after that. I don't know about you guys, but there's no way. There's no way. Like, number one, if I would have saw that one night, I would have told some motherfuckers. Number one, and I would not. I would have been like, "Hey, dude, I'm not working night shift, bro. Like, can you cover for me?" And then let somebody else deal with that shit. That's just my opinion. So 1938, 2 years later, in Paris, Michigan, our next story takes us to Michigan and the domain of the Michigan Dogman. Though most pre-1987 sightings of the Dogman are showcased in Steve Cook's April Fool's Day song, the legend, the story of Robert uh, Fortney is one of the first to take place that didn't show up in the music. This is important to bring up because most of the werewolf encounters in Steve Cook's piece are fictionalized, with Cook behaving that he made the legend up. However, this story proves that the Dogman has actually truly been around before his song was published in the late 1980s. Obviously, if you wrote the book in 1980s, but people, and that's what I'm saying, like those people born during that time, they never wanted to talk about this shit until they're on their deathbed or they're telling their kids when they're old as fuck. And that's the shitty part. How many people have died or passed away and has had something crazy happen in their life, but never had a chance to tell anybody for fear of what they would think? Who the fuck cares? But yeah, anyways. So Robert Fortney was fishing one summer day on the Muskegon River, closest to the town of Paris, Michigan. The year was 1938, and Fortney was 17 years old. Suddenly, Fortney was attacked by a pack of wild dogs, six as far as Fortney could count. The teenager was lucky to have his rifle handy before any of the dogs could lunge. He fired one warning shot in the air. After that, all of the other dogs scattered, save for one. This black fur canine proved to be no ordinary dog. However, as soon as the shot rang out, it proceeded to stare into Forney's eyes with his own piercing blue gaze from a distance of 10 feet. Then it started grinning, not succumbing to fear. Robert Forney fired one more warning shot, this time causing the maybe werewolf to run off. However, instead of skedaddling on all fours, this would-be werewolf stood up to around 6 feet tall before running away on two legs. Fortney would be one of the many callers that Steve Cook would receive in 1987 after putting his song Legend on the radio. The legend on the radio. The creature that Cook made up as a prank turned out to be very, very real to the longtime Michigan native Robert Fortney. So this guy who had it happen in 1938 was basically he'd already had this happen. So he got attacked by all these fucking dogs. Normally, you shoot a gun, and most dogs, like unless they're like bird dogs or like hunting dogs, most time when you shoot a gun, they'll run or they'll get scared. But all of them did that except for this fucking one that wasn't a normal fucking dog, and they shot it again, and it ended up running, but it ran on fucking two legs. And I don't know many dogs, but unless you teach them to do that or walk like that, it's not really, it just doesn't really happen that much. So the next one. Big Rapids, Michigan. The next story is one of the rare encounters which some allegedly captured a photo of the upright, candid cryptid. It was the year 1961, though the anonymous narrator fails to specify which month it was. It was around 3 in the morning in the Michigan town of Big Rapids, where the unknown source. So I've went to Michigan a few times. On a little side note, I went to Michigan a few times, and the first time I ever went there, I went from Illinois to Michigan, and I didn't want to do all the toll roads, so it takes you on these back roads. And I remember I got down this one stretch of highway that I think was probably about 30, 40 miles. And it was just nothing but wooded forest. And it was late at night. It was probably like 5 or 6. But the creepiest place I've ever driven down in my entire life. Completely creepy. I was like, please, let there be like a town or a gas station or something. Because if I was to run out of gas here, I'm not fucking leaving. There's no way. I'm not leaving that shit. So these kind of areas and stuff like that, like they freak me the fuck out. Like, and I think probably most of it, just because I creep the shit out of myself. I think for the most part, which I probably shouldn't, but my mind gets racing. I start thinking and stuff like that. Where the unknown source was up late at night at his home. He lived right across from the manufacturing plant that he worked at as a night watchman, of course. The plant sat right next to the Haymarsh State Game Area, and this is where the source claims he's seen someone or something making noises by the chain link fence bordering the property. Thinking it was an intruder, the narrator goes from his work to his house to grab a gun, but when he returns outside, he instead sees a 6 foot tall, grayish brown, upright canib Canid, shambling about his driveway. Thinking quickly on his feet, the anonymous source rushed into his house to try and grab his camera instead. When he returned outside, the dogman was already out of his driveway and further into the dark street. However, at one point, the creature did move near a streetlight where the anonymous source was able to snap one of maybe 4 of the 5 alleged pictures of the Michigan dogman before it ran off into the night. And I did some research on some of these, and a lot of these have been, so most of the ones who are just talking about it and not having it, but some of the ones who have photos and stuff, like a lot of them have been debunked, I guess you could say, or have been found to be told that are untrue and stuff like that. So there's a few of them in here. So in 1988, Alto and Lowell, Michigan. A lot of these are Michigan, and I don't know what the fuck is going on in Michigan. Maybe it's just like the upper UP. Maybe, I don't know. It's always cold. There's a lot of deer. There's a lot of rabbits and stuff like that. So maybe it's that. I don't fucking know. But this story is remarkable, and as much as the details a man would claim, the dogman has followed him since he was young, with 2 separate encounters spanning 20 years apart. The first one takes place. This is the scariest part. Like some you saw as a kid, so someone I saw when I was 18. Like I would be I would probably go insane if I saw it again right now, because now I've done the research on it, and I would know what the fuck to do. Just south of the city of Grand Rapids, another Grand Rapids, the anonymous source in elementary school at the time was playing during recess. Around 10 in the morning, he decided to run out in the woods adjacent to the elementary school, playing to hide and also cheat at the game of war. He made his way down the river by some train tracks when he heard a huge splash and witnessed a dark-furred dogman bolt into the woods, switching between 2 and 4 legs to run before disappearing. At this point, the narrator had ran straight home to his bed, keeping silent about both sightings until adulthood. He described it as an 8-ish feet tall, 300-pound, blue-eyed this time, and seeing most like a timber wolf but upright with longer legs. The second sighting took place in the nearby town of Lowell in the winter of 2008. The anonymous man now has a family, all sleeping soundly when he heard a thud on the roof. His canine-related childhood memories immediately flood back without prompting. He quietly snuck outside, and that was when the very same blue-eyed dogman poked his head out from the top of the roof, staring directly at him. Then the dogman leaped 30 feet from the roof and bolted on all fours to the tree line, only to stand up and stare at the anonymous man for a full minute. He fully ran at the dogman with a machete that he had brought with him. The dogman just stared at him, almost grinning now, before uttering a single audible, "Don't." The man stopped dead in his tracks and was overwhelmed by a supreme, weird sense of calm. He dropped his machete and backed away slowly, and the dogman turned and walked away calmly into the woods, disappearing. See, and that's what makes you think, like, this cannot be some sort of animal. Like, if you would think that, there's no way this could be an animal. Because most animals like that, in that kind of a situation, if you're coming at them, anything backed into a corner or that's scared will fucking attack you. And I don't know if you've ever shot coyotes before, but they will literally, if you shoot a coyote with a bow and arrow, they will literally try and pull the arrow out of their side. That's how fucking crazy these things are. So to think that something like this, like, I don't know. There's just so many questions you could have for this style of a cryptid. I don't know, but we're only on, that was only 3 of them. Jesus Christ. 1989, Elkhorn, Wisconsin. The Beast of Bray Road. Bray Road is the modest stretch of road running east from the modest Wisconsin town of Elkhorn. It is also the particular stretch of road in which the Beast of Bray Road gets its name. Though a sighting in 1989 would be the first in this beastly cryptid's illustrious career. It is a brisk fall night, around 1:30. Why are you out there at 1:30? First question. All is dark and quiet on the back country of Bray Road, connecting Highway 11 and County Road north-north. Lori Andrizzi is driving home from her job as a manager of the Elkhorn Lodge, and that's when she sees it. At the side of the road, a dark brownish figure is kneeling with its back turned toward. Short pointed ears being the only real thing to stand out. As Andrizzi drove closer, it turned, showing off its strangely canine face. Its elbows were up and its claws were facing out, so I knew it had claws. I remember the long claws. Those claws seemed to be holding roadkill as it reflected the glow of her headlights. It appeared to be 5'7". 5'7". That's an odd, and 150 pounds, from what she could tell at the fleeting glance. However, unlike most wild animals, the canine creature did not run off, but instead gazed directly into her eyes. And as he drove off, she felt as if it were so human-like that there could be no trace of wild animal being felt in those eyes. To this day, I believe it was satanic, she says. It was just my feeling. I don't really believe in werewolves, per se, but I believe something could be conjured up. My grandmother was very religious, and she believed it too. At some point later, Lori went to report her story to the Walworth County Animal Control, and hers would be one of the first to enter in the animal control officer John Ferguson's manila envelope labeled werewolf, and where first of many sightings of the Beast of Bray Road would first be collected. So if you read about the Beast of Bray Road, there's a lot of shit on that one. Like, and I don't know, a lot of it, and a lot of the encounters people have, hardly any of them are ever any way, like, they're not mean, or they're not like animal like. They're very like a person, but it obviously doesn't look like a person. So that makes you think like it's late at night and it's hard to see these kinds of things. I don't know, maybe, but I don't know. If you were to see something like this, like that shit would be creepy as fuck. Like you get creeped out when you see people like that you don't know that are there in the dark. So to see things like this, I don't know, man. It's just weird. Um, so 1991 in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, same place. The second story to enter in the John Ferguson report, however, would take place until 2 years later, though it would happen on the exact same stretch of road where Lori saw her furred fiend. Pat Lesser, Lori's mother, was a part-time school bus driver, and in 1991, she would actually have a student on her bus with a report of a walking dogman. Except to further add to the legendary of the Bray Road Beast, this one took place on Halloween night. I don't know about that one. It probably could be somebody with a mask, There's a lot of people out. But Halloween in the Midwest is always cold, so it's hard to trick or treat, I guess. So Dory was driving to a friend's house to pick up another friend from a party when she was hit with something on the thoroughly foggy stretch of Bray Road, causing her front tires to lift off the ground. Yeah, no, this is already weird. She got out of her car to investigate. Nah, if the car still drives, I'm leaving. Thinking she had hit a small animal, but found signs of neither animal nor injury. So she made her way back to her car. That's when it lunged at her through the fog, brown, straight fur, a canine face, a muscular frame, and striding on two legs. Gibson quickly bolted to her car door, not particularly in the mood to get a closer look. I just put my foot on the gas pedal and I started going. However, as soon as she tried to pull out of there, the upright candidate tried holding onto the rear bumper of the car to prevent it from going away. It was claimed that the deep scratch marks were etched in the car's rear the next day. This is not where the story ends, though. On the way back that night, Gibson's new passenger and friend shouted, "Look at that thing. There's two of them." She saw the same two muscular werewolf-esque beings, and Gibson took roughly 0 seconds before deciding to put the pedal to the floor and get the fuck out of there. Yeah, no shit. So the beginning of that was very skeptical. It's Halloween night. But for you to hit something and it to jar you that hard, and then you get out and it tries to come after you, and then you're like, first instinct is just to run, get on the gas and shit like that. And this motherfucker tries to grab that stuff, man. Nah, I wouldn't even have drove down that road, even with somebody. Because obviously she saw two of them, so then that didn't fucking help the case either. Because now there's one for each of you. I don't know. But most of these things like that, that's the kind of shit that freaks me out. The next one's in Fitchburg, Wisconsin. One of the suburbs of Madison, Wisconsin's capital is Fitchburg, which lies to the southwest of the city, and it is in Fitchburg next. God damn it, Kensley. Thanks, boo. Wait. Thanks, lover. So Fitchburg, the next 2006 encounter of the potential dogman takes place. It was a cool night in fall, September to be exact, at around 2 a.m. in the morning. A Minnesota college student named Matt, fucking Matts, was up late working on his homework when he heard something strange. I thought it said fucking pooping sounds. This says popping sounds, almost like bubble wrap being played with coming from the walls. Then all of a sudden, thousands upon thousands of birds were started and flew off loudly. An odd thing for the middle of the night, and that wasn't, and that was when he felt it. The tremors of a minor earthquake. This answered all of the questions for Matt regarding the weirdness. So he went back to his work. That was when another sound piercing through the air, almost seeming to ring across the whole neighborhood. A blood curdling, almost murder victim like scream. Worried about potential harm stemming from the earthquake, Mac rushed outside. The scream continued as he ran into the street, and just as the car approached, shining its headlights, Matt saw something unusual in the glow of the car. A humanoid creature with a wolf like head. The screaming stopped, and the canine cryptid ran off as soon as the car approached, making it hard for Matt to parse out too many details. The car then stopped behind Matt, turning out to be a police officer who proceeded to ask questions. Are you the one who called? Apparently, though, the officer wasn't checking up on any screaming, but only on concerns coming from the earthquake itself. Still, after the officer left to investigate the neighborhood further, Matt would hear the same noise intermittently throughout the rest of the night, and indeed, a handful of nights after that as well. That's, and I don't know about fucking screaming and shit like that. Like, that shit would be, I don't know, man. Some animals make weird noises, though, too. Like, a lot of animals make weird noises. Especially in the dark when you can't see that shit. Like, animals are just, they just make weird-ass noises. So, anyways. Reed City, Michigan. This story takes place in North Michigan town of Reed City in November 2007. A man named Sam and his two friends were out hunting, each positioned in their own stand until 4:30 p.m. rolled around, and the sun started to set. That was when the sounds of birds and insects completely stopped. A silence hung in the air for a minute, but was broken by 3 deer running right past Sam in his stand, followed by a foul scent similar to a mothball. I've never smelled a mothball, so I couldn't tell you. That one, I would assume they would smell good, but that's, I guess, not the case. That was when it appeared, a hulking, hunched over, yellow two-legged cryptid breaking from the bushes to pursue the deer. Perturbed, Sam stayed put until his friends arrived, though they proceeded to make fun of him despite that. The 3 started to head home, opting to return the next day. The day would prove to remain objectively calm until around 5 p.m. when Sam heard shots being fired from about 100 feet away, followed by screaming from his walkie-talkie. His friend Panic described the exact same Dogman that Sam had seen, though thankfully it ran away this time as well. Either they lacked foresight or were sufficient in courage because they decided to hunt for 2 more days. The third, man, people don't understand, man. You guys gotta, like, I don't know, this is 2007, I guess, I don't know. Maybe you have enough technology, enough guns or whatever it is, you know the area. But when you see shit like that, man, like, no, if you're about to be attacked by something, no. Like, that's why people don't live in movies and shit like that. Because they do stuff like this. It's my property, I ain't doing it, whatever, yeah. The third day of hunting was completely quiet in terms of Dogman related matters. But the 4th day proved that the canine cryptid was still on the prowl. This time, the pseudo-werewolf did even wait until noon before he ran into a well-lit clearing right in front of 2 of the 3 hunters. He stared at them directly and started grinning. Sam's friend aimed a gun at the candidate and ran off, making a growling, hissing noise. About an hour later, the third friend radioed in, you guys, are you in a werewolf suit? Am I blind? Because it's not funny. Before Sam could answer, he heard 5 distinct shots ringing out of the distance. The third friend was safe, but Sam reported that he had deep, distinct claw marks in the butt of his rifle. When they returned to the cabin later, the trio saw the snowy ground riddled with large canine footprints and the very same claw marks embedded in the front door of the cabin. 2009, Shelby, Michigan. This story takes place in the heart of the frigid Michigan winter. On a cold night, 30 minutes to midnight, retired law enforcement officer Laura Love was riding shotgun with a friend of hers who, for the sake of the story, wished to remain anonymous, only being referred to as C. The two were heading south on US 31 near the West Weber Road overpass when they had got a look at something like a throat on the cold, moderate snow road. We saw a large, tall, dark, and oddly shaped creature run out from the left side of the overpass, claimed Love, and hit the rear quarter panel of the small truck in front of us, causing the truck to fishtail. The other truck didn't even stop to check for them. It just sped off, because that motherfucker knew what it was. However, Love and her compatriot were able to get a good look at the lunar lit lupin. She described it as almost a 7.5 feet tall, dark furred, bipedal figure with backward looking knees and nearly a lion's mane worth of fur sitting on its neck like a fancy fur collar from the 20s. She also claimed that the Dogman had a face like a border collie. The creature did not stop to put on any further show for its audience and ran off, disappearing into the patch of weeds and trees. Love and C drove home silently stunned and didn't discuss the encounter until the both safety of Love's home. Only then were the two able to admit that each other had indeed seen the Michigan Dogman. So most of those were all in Michigan. There's a few in Wisconsin, but this is the number one, which is the most recent, 2016, from Duluth, Minnesota. Which I thought. Might be homies. So though barely outside the border of Wisconsin, the city of Duluth can be found in Minnesota, right as the westernmost point of Lake Superior. This report takes place on November 7th, 2016. Comes from a graphic designer, though she wishes to keep her name anonymous. That being said, having skills in art did not let a sketch up a pretty good. Having skills in the art did let her sketch up a pretty good drawing of what she saw. I got a picture of it too, I'll show you. It was a cold night on the Maple Grove Road, a stretch of the road that sits right off the border of the residential Duluth and the more rural area of the northwest of town. The anonymous source witnessed an upright cryptid running from the edge of where the lampposts of the residential area are able to illuminate before dashing into the field with a very old barn. She described the creature as probably being 7 feet tall if it were running on all fours with an extremely hunchback. It had a wolfish face with a long snout and short pointed ears, and it modified stiffly awkwardly as it were walking on its haunches like a gorilla. So walking on like it's like the part of your paws like this, like not like your like hands part of it. The grab center was frozen for a second, watching the Dogman move until she saw a passing pair of headlights illuminate behind it, bringing into focus the creature's silhouette much more clearly. She panicked and drove to a well-lit gas station where she waited for her husband to come home. She described an overwhelming, almost supernatural fear weighing down on her like a sludge. The story doesn't end there. As soon as the anonymous reporter told her family about this brief encounter, her sister confessed to having seen the same hunched wolf-like being years back, standing at the edge of the property, ominously staring in her house with piercing red eyes. So that's like I don't know, and I guess probably the biggest thing is like when you have these kind of encounters and you feel that kind of like that fear of like, oh shit, and then you start thinking like it's following you and it's going to be there with you and stuff like that, like it's always going to be around you because maybe it doesn't want to be discovered, and it's like, I don't know, like you survive seeing it, so it's going to take all its strength and energy to fucking try and find you and get rid of you, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, I understand it. I get it. Like when I saw that thing, when we were on that trail, the 2 miles that I ran back was the longest 2 miles I've ever ran in my entire life. And that was just scary because I didn't have a shirt on. I just had shorts on and shoes. And you just feel so vulnerable out there. And you got sticks hitting you and stuff like that, and you're just freaking the fuck out. Every little sound, noise, and you're just running in one way. You're not thinking like left, right, back, and stuff like that. So I get it. I mean, that fear could easily be there for somebody, but we shall see. We shall see. I hope to never see that again ever in my entire life. At least not in that setting, I guess. I mean, if I had like a couple ARs and some pistols, maybe I feel a little better. But I didn't have that. I had a dumb dog that just wanted to run, and it was pretty scary. So yeah, so that's today's episode, guys. I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed that. You know, just kind of a little story, little background stories and stuff like that. I think here's some of the. So these are some of the pictures, like some of the first ones you find for this fucking thing, and it's fucking creepy as shit. Like, look at this. Like, could you imagine if you saw this? Like, and mine wasn't even on 2 feet, and it was creepy as shit. I couldn't imagine seeing that motherfucker on 2 feet. Like this shit. Like that. Then this one's probably like this fucking thing. Like if you saw that fucking thing, dude, what would you do? You know, red eyes looking at you, smirking, like not snarling, like most fucking wolves and stuff like that. If they're gonna kill you, they'll growl or something. But for the majority of it, that was it. I hope you guys did enjoy that one. It's a little bit different, you know, just kind of, you know, I'm in the Midwest, so it was nice to find some stories and other things, because there's a lot of shit. Like, I'm in Ohio, and you go like Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, like that whole area. There's so many different encounters, and there's so many things, whether it be Bigfoot or Dogman and stuff like that. There's so many things that go on. That go on around here, and they're just creepy as shit. Like when people see stuff and say stuff, and maybe some people see more stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fucking creepy. So next week, so let's talk about next week. So next week, I won't be able to. I don't know if I'll be able to do the podcast. Next Saturday, I think, is probably when I'm gonna do it. Not gonna do it on Friday, but next Saturday I should be able to do the podcast. Saturday or Sunday is when it's gonna be. So you have to wait a couple more days, but we'll try and do it then. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys enjoy your St. Patty's Day weekend. Be safe. Be kind to people around you. Help out when you can. And yeah, I will see you guys next week, hopefully. Take care. I'll catch you guys later.